He left us to starve and to die because they made it seem like he was the legitimate leader. Every once in a while a audio tape used to come out and he used to give a speech.
ISIS fighters, ISIS women, ISIS children, the forces against them, the centers rehabilitating them. We've seen it all. Today we're going to meet a man who claims to be from the opposition of ISIS, yet refuses to answer so many questions about the group.
How did you reach Syria?
I left from the German airport and took a flight to Istanbul. From Istanbul I took a flight to Gaziantep, and from Gaziantep I crossed the border to Syria.
You did it by yourself?
Yes.
No one helped you? You didn't have any contacts from inside Syria or anywhere else?
When I reached Gaziantep I made contact with people inside of ISIS and they helped me cross the border.
How did you know them?
I got to know them on Twitter.
Before you reached Gaziantep?
Before I reached, yes. No, when I reached Gaziantep, inside Gaziantep.
What was your role in ISIS?
My role, I had many jobs. I worked as a medic, I worked as a guard, and I worked as a welder, among other things.
Only that?
Yes.
You came here, you said you want to help the Syrian people, and did you think that this is how you help the Syrian people, by working as a guard and a warden?
Yes.
How?
Because the Islamic State claimed to provide a alternative to the Syrian regime who was oppressing the people, and we wanted to help them do that.
How did you meet your wife?
My wife, I met in Raqqa. A friend came to me and he said there is a woman interested in marriage, and he asked me if I wanted to meet her, and I accepted. Sat down with her, had a meeting, and we decided to get married.
How do you sit with her? Is it allowed to see her? Are you allowed to see her face, talk to her?
Yes, you sit, you talk, you can see her face, ask questions.
Have you ever seen Baghdadi?
No.
Baghdadi? Never?
Never.
What do you hear about him? Where is he?
What do you hear about him? He left us to starve and to die. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody hears anything of him. Is he even still alive?
You don't know anything, huh?
Nobody.
How did you get his orders or his messages? Who used to deliver his messages?
Every once in a while a audio tape used to come out and he used to give a speech in order to motivate the people. That's basically everything we ever heard from him.
You were never convinced with him? Did you ever, or at the beginning, or?
In the beginning, but that faded away very, very, very quick.
What convinced you?
Because they made it seem like he was the legitimate leader. He was a legitimate leader chosen, like a leader should be chosen in Islam, and that he had the right characteristics of a leader, and he fulfilled the requirements of a leader.
There were different treatments for Muhajirin and Syrians and Iraqis, or how was the hierarchy in the Islamic State?
In the beginning they used to treat the Muhajirin good, better than the Syrians, but in the end both the Syrians and the Muhajirin were just treated like second-class citizens, like they have no rights, and the Iraqis could do whatever they want, get away wherever they want.
Why? How did this happen?
Because they were the ones in power. If an Iraqi would get caught doing something, because he's an Iraqi, he wouldn't get convicted and he would get away with it.
There were prisoners with the Islamic State. Have you ever heard about them? Like there were journalists, there were also British people, there were Lebanese, there were also 400 students from Kobani. Have you ever heard
400?
of them? From Kobani?
No, I've never heard about them. I've heard about journalists. I've heard about Kurdish fighters, I've heard about STF fighters, but that's it.
Okay. You told me that you came from Gaziantep to where?
To Rai.
To?
Rai.
منطقة الراعي. Okay.
نعم.
الراعي. What did you do in Ra'i? And where did you stay?
We were received by the Islamic State, put in a house where we could not leave. The situation was very bad. Very little bit of food, very small amount of food. Almost no blankets, overcrowded. We were made to stay there for maybe a week, 10 days. Yeah.
And after that, did they ask you what you want to do, or they just organize you or categorize you?
They ask you what you want to do. So when you say, for example, like me, I'm a welder, I say I want to do welding. They say, no, you must be a fighter or istishhadi. They don't give you a choice.
And what did you choose, fighter or istishhadi? I don't think. Which one did you choose, fighter or istishhadi?
I choose none.
You said they force you.
Yes, but you go to prison if you don't do. A lot of people went to prison because they don't want to fight.
Hmm?
A lot of people went to prison because they did not want to fight.
And you?
I chose not to be any.
And they didn't imprison you?
No, because I chose after, I said I want to be a fighter, but I got out of it.
Okay, how? Then you moved from Al-Ra'i to where? Or what happened after? You chose to be a fighter, okay? After you chose to be a fighter, what happened?
They send you to Raqqa, where I waited for a while. Then you must do muaskar. And after that they send you away.
Where did they send you?
I'd rather not say.
You don't want to say, okay.
Did you fight in Raqqa?
No.
Okay. I knew that you fought in Kobani, or you went to Kobani. What happened in Kobani? And you got shot there, right?
No comment.
Okay. Did you surrender, or they captured you?
No, I went to the SDF and I gave myself up.
You, SDF. Why did you go to SDF and not the Syrian regime? Because it was on the other side of the river.
Because we are scared of the Syrian regime, because we heard from the Syrian people what the Syrian regime does to its prisoners, the torture and the killing.
When did you surrender?
About 2 months ago.
Okay, tell me about the last days. How did you survive? I really went to Bahus, and I went to that area. It's scary.
No.
How did you live there?
Life was hell. It was very difficult. My children died from starvation. I had 2 small children, they both died. Sleeping outside, no food, hunger. Even scared of the secret police.
Oh, the secret police?
Yes.
I knew that they forced people there to stay and fight with them.
I was Mutasayib for a long time. I was absent, AWOL, for a long time. And because me and some other people used to speak out against Rola, speak out against ISIS, say they do this wrong and you shouldn't fight with them, This was why the secret police was looking for us. So we, alhamdulillah, luckily we got away before they catched us.
At that period, I know that there was a fight between the ISIS and militants, between themselves, and they were categorized by 2 or 3. I don't know, you can explain this more. That some were planning to fight till the end, others were planning to surrender. What do you know about this?
There was a very big group of people, namely Muhajirin, immigrants. They absolutely did not disagree with what the Islamic State was doing and what they believed in, and they stopped working with the Islamic State for a long time, and they were trying to leave for a long time. I was amongst one of them. Some of them they left, some of them they got caught leaving. People who got caught, most of them got imprisoned, some even tortured and killed. I personally know one who was imprisoned because he tried to leave. and from what I've heard, he got killed by ISIS. And then there was groups that still believed that the Islamic State was a good cause, and they stayed fighting. Some of them, they stayed fighting for personal reasons.
Like what?
Like seeking martyrdom, or maybe they did something and they cannot go back to their home country.
You're talking about how they tortured and they imprisoned people. How was the courts there? How was the security system in ISIS territory?
In terms of the secret police, they basically they were a regime, a bloodthirsty regime that looked for any excuse to imprison you, to torture you, to kill you. I know the Hisbad used to be very rough on people for very small things. Yeah.
Okay, and how they used, like, the courts, how the courts used to work there?
The courts basically, when you get imprisoned for a accusation, you are guilty until proven innocent. They will torture you until you confess, and then after you confess, they will kill you.
How do you think that the Omara, and I don't want to say the Omara, the leaders escaped? How the leaders of ISIS escaped? They didn't catch anyone in Baghouz, any leader of ISIS. All of them, they are just like disappeared. What were their plans to disappear?
How their plans were, I don't know. But I heard they ran away. They escaped to Turkey. They escaped to Iraq. How they did it, I don't know. I heard they used to bribe the border guards.
Which border guards?
Iraqi, Syrian, any border.
Do you regret what you did?
Of course.
What's the thing that you regret for?
I regret hurting my family. I regret being part of a system that did atrocities, that killed innocent people, that distorted Islam.
Did you try to escape?
Of course, yes. But because I was in prison for a long time, it was very dangerous for me to...
You were in prison?
Yes.
With ISIS?
Yes.
For how long?
7.5 months.
Why?
Because they accused me of being a spy.
For whom?
For the Dutch government.
And how did you convince them that you were not a spy?
I didn't. They sentenced me to death, but then a committee came to the prison and they threw out a lot of people. Most of them were convicted to death.
Were you tortured? Or
Yes.
How? How did ISIS use to torture?
I'd rather not say. I'd rather not say. I don't want to say.
Okay.
Because they claim to be on the mythology of the Prophet, while they are clearly not. And whilst claiming that they are upon the truth, they do things that are against Islam, and they commit atrocities, and they hurt innocent people.
Did you know that? Did you know that they withdrew the British nationality from your wife?
Yes, I heard this. Yes.
What are your plans after that?
I hope that I can take her with me to my country if my country decides to take me, or else whatever happens to her, I will stay with her.
What happened to your children? I knew that you had a small baby now. What happened to them?
I don't know. They don't tell me anything when I'm in prison.
But you watch TV.
Yes, but we don't have a lot of channels. I heard when I was doing an interview, the interviewer asked me how I feel about my third child passing away, and that's how I heard. I just hope that people see that I know that I've made a mistake, and I want to better myself, and hopefully one day reunite with my wife and to become a family again.
The field fight against ISIS in northern Syria ended with al-Baghouz, but there's much more complications here. This is the Karakosak bridge in Syria, which connects the eastern and western sides of the Euphrates River. We'll cross this bridge together to get to Manbij. The city of Manbij and its surrounding towns is at the international cross-section of the Syrian conflict. This black line is the Sajur River, which separates conflicting Turkish and Kurdish forces. To the north, there's a Turkish military presence along with the Euphrates Shield forces, which are backed by Turkey. And to the south, there's Al-Bab Military Council and the Syrian regime. On the Sajur line, American and Turkish forces patrol the area to prevent any clashes between the parties. Now inside Al-Aremi, there are forces from the Manbij Military Council, which is backed by the US, and there's also presence for the Syrian regime and Russia, whose role is to monitor the area. Then between Al-Aremi and Manbij, there's a US military presence. Then there's the Euphrates River, which separates all of those from the Syrian Democratic Forces. We went to the town of Al-Aremi. This is the Russian Coordination Center, and here are the flags that show military presence of local, regional, and international forces. In this area, we had to drive very carefully on specified roads for each faction. The Kurdish fighters who were battling ISIS in Syria are regarded by the United States as its most reliable partners there. But to Turkey, a NATO ally of the US, these Kurds are terrorists. Hence why an American-Turkish roadmap that separates forces is the equivalent of a ceasefire understanding here. This point separates three forces. US-backed Manbij Military Council is where I'm standing, and the Turkish-backed Euphrates Shield forces are to the north, and the People's Protection Units, also known as the YPG, is to the east of the Euphrates. Despite this wide military presence, the next war seems to be a security one, against the sleeper cells of ISIS, who are keeping all of these factions sleepless.